Hey everyone, I wanted to share 5 quick tips to help you out in the early part of Genshin Impact. If you're anything like me, you've probably been playing Genshin Impact for about 2 weeks now, and there are some things that the game doesn't tell you, and some things that it does that are just hidden behind menus. So I just want to go over 5 quick things that'll really help you get used to the world and used to the combat. So here's my first tip. So the first tip that I'm going to cover is really simple, and it's probably the easiest thing in the game that people may look over, is making sure that you understand the elemental reactions, and make sure that you create a team around elemental reactions, because that's how you're going to get a lot of your damage. So for example, I have Barbara here, who is a water mage, but I also have Razor on my team, who uses Electro. So you see these enemies right here, if I get them if I put a wet status on them with Barbara, and then I switch over to Razor, and I use this elemental ability, look at the amount of damage that they took. You know, and the same thing, so here, right here with this mage, if I put a wet status on him, switch back over to Razor, look at that, he took an electro charge, and he's dead. And all I did was use my charge elemental attack. So make sure that you're focusing on elemental combos, making sure that your team is at least, I mean, it doesn't have to be fully optimized, but make sure that you're using the elements in your team to your advantage, because you're going to do so much more damage that way. So for my second tip, it's going to be to make sure that your weapons and artifacts properly complement your characters. So if you look at Razor, he is my primary DPS or damage per second character. In his weapon, the Debate Club, I've refined it, and it's level 16 right now. But if you look at the actual skill that it has, Blunt Conclusion, so after using an elemental skill, normal or charged attacks deal an additional 120% within a small radius, and that effect lasts 15 seconds. So after I use this elemental skill, which I use all the time, I'm doing more damage to enemies that I hit with the Debate Club, which is already a very strong weapon. So take a look at your characters and make sure that their skills and weapons are working in conjunction with each other, because you'll get way more damage that way, and it'll just make your team way more in sync. And on that note, don't be afraid to level up a 3-star weapon if that 3-star weapon properly fits what you're trying to do. You know, I know there's a lot of glamour in going for, a 4 or 5-star weapon. Like for example, the Bane of Storm and Tide, this rain slasher. So it increases damage against enemies affected by Hydro or Electro, which is also good because Razor does inflict Electro, and I do have Barbara on my team who does inflict Hydro, but it's only 24%, and maybe if I refine it more, it'll become higher, but I feel like the Debate Club is just, that 120% attack damage is just too good to pass up, especially with Razor. So make sure you're looking for that with your characters. So for my third tip, I'm actually still working on this one myself, but I've seen a lot of people say, especially in the late game, they wish that they focused more on 1 or 2 characters as opposed to making a more well-rounded team, which kind of seems, the opposite of what you would do normally, right? Like, if you're going into a game, you want to have a well-rounded team. You don't want anybody to be way stronger than anyone else. But given the type of game that it is free to play, and if you are a free to play player, then it's gonna benefit you to focus on 1 or 2 characters to level them up, because you just won't have the resources to level up everybody in your party. Especially if you have multiple parties. You just won't have the resources unless you're willing to go beyond that paywall and, just shell out a lot of money to do it. And if you are, then there's nothing wrong with that. But if you are a free-to-play player, then make sure that you're focusing on a couple of characters and just making sure they're as strong as they can be. And again, make sure that, you have those elemental reactions down, especially on those stronger characters, if those are your primary damage characters. Tip number 4, make sure that you're focusing on the towers that are around the map, because those towers are going to provide you with a ton of experience. They're going to provide you with primo gems, and maybe most importantly, they're going to provide you with stamina. So the reason why stamina is so important is if you use a mage character, like for example, I'm using Ningguang right here, you use stamina anytime you use a charge shot. So if I'm using a charge shot right here, I'm out of stamina. Now I can't run away from him because I'm completely out of stamina because I used the charge shot. So the more stamina that you have, the more you're able to move around and the more you're able to attack enemies with charge attacks. And that's going to be incredibly important moving forward. And another thing about stamina is you're able to explore the map a lot better because you use stamina to swim, you use it to climb mountains, you use it to run, right? So exploration is just so much easier when you have enough stamina. So for my 5th and final tip, it's going to be when you're designing your team, make sure that you're looking at characters' passive abilities. And if you're unfamiliar with passive abilities, I'll show you exactly what I mean. So if I go to Razor right here and I go to details, so if you go down to talents, you'll see all of the talents that he has, right? But if you scroll down, he has 2 passive talents. So one is called Woven Sprint. It decreases all party members' sprinting stamina by 20%, the consumption by 20%. So when he's in my party, I'm able to run a lot more, which means I'm able to explore a lot more, which means I'm able to gather materials more. And he also has another passive talent called Awakening, which decreases Claw and Thunder, the cooldown by 18%. And using Lightning Fang resets the cooldown of Claw and Thunder completely. So those are my elemental abilities, so they directly support one another. And to further explain the passive abilities, if you look in the top left corner at my mini map, you'll see an elemental icon. It looks kind of like some gems or some jewels. And initially I was like, why is this on my map? I had never seen it. And then one day it just popped up on my map. And so if I go to my start menu and I go to my characters, it took me a while to figure this out, honestly. And if I go over to Ningguang right here, under her talents, she has one that's called Trove of Marvelous Treasures, and it displays the location of nearby ore veins, so iron ore, white iron ore, crystal ore, magical crystal ore on the mini-map, which those are very valuable resources when you start to make your own weapons. When you're going to the blacksmith and he's making weapons for you, you're going to need that. So one of her passive abilities is literally to be able to tell you on the map where these things are if you're close to them. So that's invaluable. I mean, she's basically doing treasure hunting for you. So everyone, those were my 5 tips for the beginning of Genshin Impact. There's a whole lot to explore in this game, and these are just 5 really quick things. I just wanted to let people who are just starting the game out know, because I didn't know to look for a lot of them, because again, there's a lot to unpack in this game. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like down below, leave a comment, and I'll keep making more content like this. I'm really just scratching the surface of this game, so I'm going to be learning new things with everyone else, and I love to make videos like this to help anybody who's just starting out. Until next time, thank you.